Evening everyone, and welcome to the final ordinary meeting of Council on the 13th of December 2021. Just a note that we are recording the meeting this evening just with the Zoom recording, just to make it available for those who can't attend due to COVID restrictions or who are not able to make it this evening. So with that, I'll hand over to Mayor Brad to officiate the meeting.
Thanks very much, Matt. Welcome all. Thanks very much for coming tonight. We acknowledge the Bangala people, the traditional owners of the land we meet on today, and their continuing connection to the land, sea, culture and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in our community. The City of Port Lincoln acknowledges and respects the diversity of cultural heritage and beliefs within our community. As a council, we are committed to serving the best interests and needs of all people in our city, and we endeavour to discharge our duties conscientiously to the best of our ability. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Welcome to the gallery. Welcome to the people who are doing presentations tonight. Welcome to staff and all elected members. I'm sinking. So we have Councillor Broadfoot, Councillor Rousell as an apology, Councillor Lynn, Councillor Jolly, welcome back, Peter. Councillor Davis, Deputy Mayor Ritchie. Does anyone know where Councillor Davies is? Has anyone heard anything from her? Minister is absent, please. Councillor Staunton, Councillor Dodd. Apologies from Councillor Rousseau we received. Now, I know the council policy is to keep these masks on. I don't know if I can talk like this while I'm doing this.
I think for the purpose of the recording, if there's anyone watching to be able to see you speak, will be fine.
Yeah. Item number 3 is a declaration of conflict of interest. Do we have any conflicts of interest at all? I'll go around the room. Councillor Broadfoot, yes?
Yeah, I've got a conflict of interest with the confidential item, 17.1. The Australia Day Awards.
Oh, okay. Yep. Councillor Lynn, you'll put the paperwork in, won't you, Councillor?
I'll put the paperwork in and I'll raise it once we're in confidence.
Okay, that's perceived or actual?
It's actual.
Okay, got it. Councillor Lynn, you're okay. Councillor Jolly?
No conflict.
Councillor Davis, yeah.
No.
Deputy conflict with 17.1. Actual, yeah.
Okay, understand.
I'll leave the meeting.
Okay, and you'll put paperwork in?
Yeah.
If you don't, Councillor Staunton?
Conflict with 17.1, the confidential matter, C.
Okay, no worries. And paperwork, same for you?
Yeah.
Are you going to stay or leave?
I'll stay.
Okay, Councillor Dodd? Thank you. You're right with that, Amanda? Item 4 is a confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. We have the previous meeting minutes there. Can I have, first of all, is there any discussion on it at all? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Davis, do you want to speak on it?
No, thank you.
Can I have a second, please? Councillor Lynn, would you like to speak on it, Peter? Any questions, speakers for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 5, adjourned items, there are none. Item 6, questions with and without notice, there are none. Item 7, notice of motion, there are nil. Item 8, petitions, nil. Item 9, deputations and representations. We have a rural management team representation from our wonderful employees, Gay Scholes, Jasmine Schultz, Crito Chitabilly and Damien Walford. And I'll hand over to you, Matt, for that. You can do the presentations as well.
Thanks, Mayor Brad. Sorry. Thanks, Mayor Brad. So just a reminder for elected members that we had a team of staff go and compete in the Rural Management Challenge. So it's a local government professionals activity which involves councils from across the state. Our team, the Port Lincoln Parrocks, will come and introduce themselves in a second, competed on the day, and they used weight reserve, the weight reserve concept as a pre-challenge task, and they gave it another dimension for that. And I'm very proud to say that while not successful with winning the day, they did have the highest individual score in their pre-challenge task. So the activity, the information that they put together as a team prior to the event around Weight Reserve was the highest scoring project assessed through the Rural Management Challenge. So we don't have Christo with us this evening. Unfortunately, Christo can't make it, but we do have Gay, Jasmine and Damien. So I'd like to welcome them up and provide their presentation, a little bit of an update to Council on what happened. And I guess we'll just keep in mind that the Weight Reserve project is, while it's a real project, the Lincoln Parrot's overlay is hypothetical, but we may very well look at what we can implement from the concept that this team has developed over the coming months.
Thanks, Matt. Yes, you can see that we chose our name to be the Port Lincoln Parrots, and thought we'd give you the background on why we chose that. So, according to Pet Guide, the Port Lincoln Parrot is a calm, fun parrot with a very friendly personality. It's native to some of the most difficult regions of Australia. It's common to Port Lincoln on the coast of southern Australia. Port Lincoln parrots have exceptional abilities to adapt. They'll love new things and will be quick to show their playful side if given the chance. And we thought that was a perfect fitting for our team.
Good evening, everyone. We are the Port Lincoln Parrots. I'm Damien. This is Gay. This is Gaz. Sorry, as you know, Christo cannot be here tonight. As you may know, we took part in the 2021 Rural Challenge, representing the City of Port Lincoln. At the events, we discussed how technology can assist Council in meeting the community demands of tomorrow. We are here today to explain how these measures can be implemented and how it can be beneficial to the City of Port Lincoln.
After a discussion with the CEO regarding what the changing community demands will be the most challenging to meet in the next 5 years, we identified that a noticeable issue within Council was reducing the service gap between community expectations and our Council's service delivery capabilities. To combat this issue, we thought it would be valuable to devise a solution which incorporates technology, AI and data management, so that we can more sustainably use Council's resources and hence reduce the service gap without having to raise council rates or find new revenue streams. We thought it would be beneficial for artificial intelligence, robotics and sensory software be implemented into the project during the early design stages of the Weight Reserve upgrade. This is a perfect opportunity to trial this technology, as Weight Reserve is a prominent spot in Port Lincoln, which is used by a large proportion of the community. So by implementing the use of advanced technology and AI in this project, we would be able to identify the benefits of this approach and be able to apply it to our projects within the City of Port Lincoln. In light of the challenge this service gap presents, we feel a more automated and less hands-on or labour-intensive approach is best. Noise and air monitors will alert us of increased pollutants and provide data for the best placement of sound barriers and screening plants. People counters and location trackers, as well as heat sensors, will tell us the number of people, how long they are staying, and what time of the day they frequent the park. Smart benches and intuitive lighting will lead to a safer space, and CCTV camera footage may aid authorities with their investigations. Auto-locking amenities and gates will reduce security risks and enable remote control access during emergencies. The use of interpretive signage and QR code technology could provide the community with information, updates, and local history anecdotes. Robot mowers and other AI devices will potentially reduce labour or allow these resources to be used for more technically demanding tasks. As mentioned, using Weight Reserve as our testing ground for the implementation of these technological and data gathering devices is an ideal time to make the most of the Open Space Grants Program funding we've received. We are able to finance these improvements through our successfully funded application gained through the Open Space Grants Program. As a result of the cost savings through these initiatives, over time, we will be able to redistribute funds from various budget lines to improve and upgrade other parks and reserves, thus creating a flow-on of savings and improved customer satisfaction.
We believe the benefits by trialling this site and analysing usage patterns, we can prioritise improved services and equipment. We are creating a safe hub where water, shelter, phone charging and access to radio emergency warnings, i.e. fire and storms. Having equipment with automatic sensors, we can reduce costs to maximise efficiency. Improving services, we can halve estimated costs by embracing technology. We believe we can be working smarter and not harder by embracing technology.
One of the questions we were asked was, how do we think that the community will respond to some of these technology upgrades? And we had to think about our community here has probably seen a lot of technology benefits through agriculture and aquaculture and other industries, so it's not anything new. But in public places, it's probably a more difficult thing and would need a higher level of community consultation to see which bits of technology the community would be willing to give a go. And we also discovered through our discussions that picture of the garden there might look really good on paper, but we need to consult also with the open spaces staff and other staff that are going to be involved in the maintenance and operations of all of these improvements to make sure that it's actually functional and maintainable, which is probably a good lesson for any change management. And the next slide, thanks, Dave. So we really wanted to focus on the triple bottom line of council. So we've talked about some economic benefits of saving costs. So if we have sensors that tell us when bins are full and only send people out to empty the bins when it's actually needed, that can save us money. But there were also some significant community and environmental benefits that we could find through technology. And so we talked about having the best location for shade and things for us, but also for the animals. There was some, in the consultation report, there was several mentions of bird bath water and things like that. So technology can also monitor the bird activity and where watering points might be best, and if we're making improvements in that area by seeing more wildlife come into our parks. So we certainly found some environmental benefits. Also, if we've got sensors and monitors picking up water leaks before it becomes a major leak, that saves us money, but it also saves water and resources and energy through finding other faults. There's also community benefits. So we talked about improved security, which also came through the community consultations, that people are looking for improved security. So there could be some benefits there, and we need to weigh that up with how much people would actually want different technologies to be able to help with that. There's the smart benches we thought about in an emergency situation. So there would be opportunity to have somewhere where people can go and charge their phones and maybe alleviate some of the pressure of facilities where it could be a place where there's cool shade, where there's water, where there's charging points and emergency broadcasting information, that it would be a safe place for people to go when there's a fire or a power outage or a heat wave. And the reduction of costs would allow us to really put more resources into what the people would like to see more of as well. So the next steps would be to meet with the project officers who are actually going to be taking Wake Reserve to the next step and talk about some of the ideas that we have found so that we can hand that over to them to consider. And as Gay said, this is really a test, could be a test to see how it could be rolled out for every project, to really consider this as a step for each project, rather than just doing what's already there. Maybe there's some technology improvements that could be put in. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you for your time.
Is there any questions at all?
One question, I guess, and wanted to run that past the other day as well. Did you enjoy the whole experience of going through the development of this, but also the competition as well?
It was pretty amazing. It was something that I'd never been involved in, and it took me out of my comfort zone. And on the day, I said I'd never wish it upon anyone, but reflecting back on it, it was amazing. And I think just with the four of us who work together, and we've never probably worked and done anything together in council before, we took a little part of each one of us's occupation and combined it into as to make one sort of good goal. So yes, very hard, but yes, took a lot away from it.
Yeah. Councillor Davis.
Sorry girls, miss you out, but Damien, how did the other outdoor staff feel about this? Because this is really, normally, you know, we make these grand decisions in here and the staff have all these wonderful ideas, but you guys maintain it, and sustainability of that maintenance is really important. So how do your fellow workers feel about what you experience, but also being a part of this whole project at such a level even now? Any consultation?
I suppose I spoke more to supervisors and managers, but I did leave it open to anyone to have a look at. And I think a lot of people think when they see things like this, it's a bit writ large, so to speak, like, you know, implementing it. But I think by looking back, what I've seen in the last 25 years of changes and things, and once a little thing happens, people embrace it. So yeah, and especially to be involved, I think that makes a really big difference, because sometimes you get told this is going to happen, and a maintenance side of things, you're not too sure how it's all going to work out. Like, it's lovely to see something on paper, but the actual maintaining it's a whole different story. So it could really work out, and I'm sure if one place like this goes ahead, it could be across the board.
That's Crawford.
Oh yeah, through you, I was just wondering how you see your learnings might be implemented in other cross-sectoral sort of work in council. So, you know, you say it hasn't happened before, but how do you see, like, without there being a competition, what might be possible with just ways of working within teams so people understand each other's roles and then bring value from your different perspectives?
Yeah, we really found it great working with 4 people from completely different teams, and we can see that there's huge benefits in that. And we do that a little bit, but the more that we can do that through our day-to-day work, there's going to be huge benefits for us working with people across different teams, because most issues will come across different areas. There's always going to be a financial aspect, a maintenance aspect, compliance aspect.
And I think I generally respect the office staff a lot more now.
You do really work.
Yes, I do.
Councillor Lynn.
Will you be renaming Wake Reserve to the Lincoln Parrot Park?
I think we've...
Because I reckon with what you've got in mind, you should.
Maybe we could incorporate some part.
I think we also discussed, with just coming back to yours, Councillor Broadfoot, potentially doing like mini competitions down the track to incorporate different teams, using what we learnt, and potentially be part of the facilitating team, so that other people within the different departments can actually experience something of what we did, so, and get to know other team members from different departments. So
yeah, great.
That's a possibility in the future as well.
Fantastic.
So really, there's two dimensions. Number one is possibilities of where we can go with that, and the cooperative approach that you guys are doing to create that sort of circumstance for us in the future. And the other one is from a personal type, the journey that you've been on. I think, I mean, Damien, you created a pretty good situation where you were saying, now I understand. You know.
Yeah, well, there's definitely an eye on this.
It's a two-way street, though.
Yeah, exactly.
So great work, really, really good work. I know that a lot of the people involved in the background here were really in behind you, hoping it would go well. I love your t-shirts, that's the most important. But teamwork, can't beat. Yeah, great stuff. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you very much. That's a great element team. If by chance I start to disappear and sink below the level of the table, don't worry about it, because it's just usually what happens every night that I've been in here since we started, David.
We are looking into getting that sorted out early in the new year.
Thank you.
Oh, so about $17 probably.
I think that there's been a deliberate ploy here, mate, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Okay, item 10 is elected members' reports. My mayor's activity report is there. Before I even go any further, Councillor Davis, what can I answer for you?
Pardon?
I'm only not going to read.
I always have at least two.
Yeah,
it was something that I was taught when I joined council. So
you can go first.
Okay, thank you. Very kind of you. I've got my own personal platform. Boundary reform discussion between Laura and as well as.
Yeah, we had the CEO or the CEOs and the mayors of the three councils. Long story short, we agreed in the future that we would be looking at shared services, that was a viable proposition that they were both interested in as other councils, and the three councils would be able to create a circumstance there. And there's further work required in that area. The second one was amalgamation, was when it was put forward by myself and Matt as a discussion point. It was an emphatic no from the District Council of Tumby Bay and an emphatic no from the District Council of Lower Eyre. They weren't interested in amalgamation at all. And we had some significant discussion on that. When it came to the boundary redefinition, it was an emphatic no from the District Council of Lower Eyre Peninsula to any boundary redefinition beyond where we are now. We had some preliminary discussions about expansion of the city and the likes, but the reality was that they said, no, we don't want you to do it. We said, well, we're going to look into it further, and sometime next year we'll be looking into it a bit more. So what we did was we kept our options open, but we got the answers to the three questions that we were after, which was yes, no, no. So now we know from the direction, from a process point of view, we've spoken with both councils that are relevant to any amalgamation and boundary redefinition. We're now going to probably pursue a pathway next year where we withdraw after conference with council, with the elected members. We'll probably withdraw the existing documentation that's with the Boundaries Commission, and then re-examine in depth and thoroughly another approach to boundary redefinition. But it's not been dropped away.
Next question. COVID community response strategy. We had an update meeting, and I suppose that's sort of part of the air and final. I understand that council's CEOs do meet.
Yeah, that was
particularly if there's a response needed here.
Yeah, that was a Zumo, I reckon, from memory, and I think it was really. I reckon that was your meeting, Jack, wasn't it?
It was. That's it. It was a chamber meeting with,
on the first.
Yeah. That was to discuss, just to bring a whole range of people to discuss the changing border situation and how that impacted a whole range of organisations, including those directly involved in the process.
it was really an approach, I think, by the Chamber of Commerce to get wider community understanding of what's happening. Verity she gave a very good presentation, basically about where we are and what's expected to go forward from there. But
I was approached today by Far North Health. They're actually holding this Friday a walk-in vaccination clinic out at Shepherd Avenue Shops. So if anybody would like one of those, they've got a 50% level of injections at this point in time. So they want to increase that tenfold in that area. The other question is SAPOL meeting in relation to Palm Trail extension.
Yes, all that was a briefing for the community. Trying to think what they call themselves, community services within SAPOL, just to speak with them about what the concept was for the extension of the Palm Trail out to Stenros, what impacts there may be regarding crime prevention through environmental design, and what the expectation was of the current crime profiles in the area compared with what it might be if there was a pathway there. It was really just anecdotal. There was no empirical evidence or anything like that by SAPOL. And there is a meeting tomorrow night with some stakeholders concerning that. We've invited SAPOL to come. They're not, because obviously they don't want to be seen to be taking sides or anything, but they've given us some advice in a tabulated format, I think. Is that right, mate? Yep. Is there any other questions on my activity sheet at all? Councillor Broadfoot.
Just, we both attended the SA Coastal Council Alliance Forum. I was just interested in your highlights or takeaways from that.
Yeah, well, they had two good presenters there, both learned colleagues, I suppose. The climate change aspect was much to the forefront of that. I think one of the things that I took away from there was the fact that the LiDAR information is available there, that they didn't want to push that out too far. I think, wasn't you said it was hidden somewhere?
Oh, it's there, yeah, it's just you got to dig a little bit.
Yeah, so the climate aspect or climate change aspect was very, very prominent in all the discussions all the way through regarding sea level potential rise and potential impacts, I suppose, from a planning and insurance perspective. Most particularly, I think the examples they used was impacts on shorelines, which is relevant to where we've been going of late. So I'll let you actually expand on that a bit more if you want to now while we're talking about it.
Oh, well, we're talking, yeah, I guess we just looked at some of the other councils, the projects that they've been doing, City of Onkaparinga, Port Adelaide. Essentially, we're looking at up to a 5 metre sea level rise, potentially within 100 years or so.
5 metres?
Hey?
5?
5, yeah.
I didn't take that away.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to know what you actually took away, because so if we go net zero by 2050, you actually then need to go backwards. You need to be sucking CO2 out of the atmosphere because the ice sheets are melting and the sea level will continue to rise. So we listen to other councils' strategies around and the work that they're doing, including research that we can look at to, do you protect, do you retreat? What was the other one? Protect, retreat.
I think that was it.
Yeah, get your feet wet, essentially. And the Insurance Association spoke because the Insurance Association have got a big impetus around it because they're essentially saying where we're going is uninsurable. So, yeah, I did write a heap of notes on there, and I just thought we need to, when we're doing those things, take responsibility to writing that up and sharing that. So I will write that up and share that. But, it's all, the science is in, so it's incontrovertible, and there's a lot to be done, I guess, in that space. And for us with coastal councils, particularly people who've built out of sapphire waters and things, it'll be something that we're going to need to consider with what we do here too.
My takeaway was under 50 centimetres over the 100, I think, not 5 metres. I'm just looking at the notes.
I haven't got mine.
We clarify that the recording will be available from that meeting. So.
Yeah, all the recordings there, and it'd be worthwhile having a look so I can share those links. But other councils are doing some really great work in this space, which we can learn from. Port Adelaide's in a really difficult position. They've got three electricity plants all in that swampland. They've got, and the way it's going, all of that and half the suburbs all underwater with not much of a, they don't have much of a rise. That's all built on swampland as it is. So where we've got places like, I suppose, the silos and things where we have had swamp and we've built it up, or there've been sand dunes and things like that. Yeah, we're just going to have to take a really serious look at what we're doing with our planning into the future.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that. Any further questions on my activity report? No? 10.2 is Deputy Mayor's report. Any questions on that or anything you want to add, Jack?
Nothing to add there. Thanks.
Okay, all good. 10.3 is Councillor Broadfoot. Covered off on that one.
Just to say the Health Advisory Council meeting did go ahead. That's been fully re-energised, so we've got a heap of new members. We're re-looking at our strategic plan for that. We've got GP John Williams on as part of that. And we're looking at a co-chair arrangement with Chris Jetner's come back into the mix, who was the former chair, looking to support Harry Miller with that as a co-chairing role. And we've got some, I've been doing some work there, and others have been doing some work to activate new membership, so we can really, yeah, just get that to be a lot more proactive and functioning.
Okay, thanks very much. Questions? No. Councillor Searle's not here. Councillor Lynn, anything to add, mate?
Only the one on the 20th November, the hands off the Boston Bay seafood. I went to that, but I wasn't need to say it's cancelled.
Oh, I went to that too. Councillor Jolly.
0.
Okay. Councillor Davis.
The CEO review committee meeting and also the DECO breakfast and some other stuff.
Thanks a lot. Councillor Staunton. Oh, sorry, Jack. Sorry, Jack.
I covered that one.
I missed it. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Jack. Yeah, I'm just going around. So, Councillor Staunton, I was right with this.
Just the council staff breakfast tonight.
Good. And Councillor Dodd?
Just the breakfast.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions of anyone? No. Item 11 is Chief Executive Officer items for discussion. Matt, over to you.
Thanks, Mayor Brad. I'll keep it pretty brief today. So really just going into December mode of trying to recap on where we've been over the last few months and start planning out for 2022, at least the first half of 2022. So you would have seen a whole bunch of calendar appointments come out for some workshops already, largely around the budget and the long-term financials. There will be also some workshop dates coming out shortly for some other specific project and initiatives, probably starting from February as well. So just starting to get into planning, swing of things. And there's also a date that's gone out for an elected member bus tour. So it's similar to what we did earlier in the year, just take everyone on the bus and head out. And we are actually doing a leadership bus tour tomorrow, just to go around with a few key projects and initiatives to start those conversations for next financial year. So other than that, recruitment, we've still got quite a few key roles on the market at the moment, including manager of open spaces, manager of economic tourism growth, some operational roles, and a few others. First Nations Engagement Officer is out. COVID has been pretty time consuming again over the last 6 weeks, and I think we're sort of starting to stabilise into a pattern now, but I think we're in a holding pattern until we start to see the caseload rise a little bit across the state. But as mentioned earlier, so having fortnightly meetings with the other CEOs across the region, including Health Network, We've also had a meeting that was facilitated through the chamber, as well as internal meetings around COVID. So we are having quite a few conversations. And again, council's role is really to facilitate and support the messaging coming out of SA Health when it comes to COVID, vaccinations, outbreak planning, things like that. But we do encourage businesses in particular to really think about, I guess, the impacts of COVID and the outbreaks. Particularly, some businesses have read through the information and know what happens when someone's a casual contact, a close contact, et cetera, but some businesses haven't. And I think we just try and encourage people to really think through what that means for their own businesses, particularly when they're small businesses, if half the team or the whole team has to quarantine. So again, just working through that process. We've had a workshop with Tonkin middle of last week, and also with the yacht club, just around the Air Street pump station and outfall. So we'll be working through some solutions for that in early January, and then we'll be getting back with the yacht club and probably back with council in relation to that, how we go. And also just having a look at some grant funding. So I think we discussed last time some opportunities which may arise. So the BBRF 6, which is the next round of the Building Better Regions Fund, the federal funding, we believe will be announced soon. So we're just doing some preparatory work on some projects for BBRF 6. And we're just re-engaging with SA Water after the pause on the desal plant as well. So we've got a meeting tomorrow with SA Water. That's me and Brett and I, just to start the process of understanding what their plan is now in terms of how they're going to progress discussions over the next 12 months in relation to the desal plant. That's probably about it for the moment.
If I can just add to that, Matt, be meeting with Rowan Ramsey tomorrow just to upgrade him on the desal situation, desal plant situation, as well as some other matters. And if we get the opportunity, depending on a few things that we're still working on, we'll be lobbying with federal senators as well about the desal plant and possible Building Better Regions Fund level 6 as well. So that's in the wash at the moment. So just for information. Okay, questions of Matt? No. Item 12 is Council Committee reports and minutes. There are none. Item 13 is the Chief Executive Officer report, the resolution status report. Is there any? Well, Matt, do you want to talk on that at all?
Just to note that we've provided a fair bit more commentary around the outstanding resolution on waste reduction as discussed at the last meeting. So I'm hoping that makes sense. And we also had a site meeting up at the Resource Recovery Centre last week, which involved the State Manager for Resource Recovery from Veolia, plus the Site Manager, JP, myself, Troy, Kerry, and so Troy Davis is the Manager of Civil Assets and Operations, the new Manager, Kerry and David joined us for that visit as well, just to really have a good look at the site, have a look at some of the operations, and I guess given that we've got 3 relatively new faces in myself, just over 12 months, JP just over 6 months, and Troy about 3 weeks in, who will be key players, I guess, in the waste management strategy. So if there's any other questions on that, happy to take those.
Councillor Davis.
Through you, Mayor, Matt, I'm just concerned about the impact of the higher utilisation of our facility, that we own all of the infrastructure there, and we have in the past continued to maintain it, to improve the infrastructure on site, and looking at Veolia leasing that area and the impact of the increased services from that site. I'm just interested in the general impact on an ongoing basis, maintenance, upkeep, and where it sits within our lease agreement. And I would anticipate that that's something I would understand that you're currently looking at.
Yes, so through you, Mayor Brad, so the lease agreement would be more the management contract that's in place. So Troy, being the new manager is undertaking a review of that contract at the moment, which will also include an assessment of responsibilities and where people we're doing what we need to do and what they need to do. In terms of the infrastructure, we own all the hard infrastructure, but Veolia own all the operating infrastructure. So all the baling equipment, all the machines, all the moving parts is all Veolia's. So it would just be a case of what's contained within the management contract, and if there needs to be a consideration for additional wear and tear on the fixed infrastructure. Something that was quite interesting, and I wasn't aware of the extent until we actually went up there and I was reading through documentation prior to going up there, was the fact that our kit hadn't been used since 2014 in any significant way. So the South Hall, which is a landfill site up there, receives less than 1,000 tonnes of waste a year. Effectively, the site's operating as a transfer station up to landfill waste up near Tumby. So I have to say, it's a fairly well, from the outside looking in, it's a fairly well run and it's a fairly clean operation up there as well. So I think, I don't think that's just because we were having a site visit. I think that's it's genuinely a pretty well run and pretty clean operation.
The transfer station is the most expensive part of that whole cost, and it has gradually been added to, particularly because the location is a big wind factor as far as rubbish blowing around and that. So the wear and tear on that is the infrastructure that we own is quite substantial.
I think we're looking at shared services too, aren't we?
Yes, I think in relation to that, I mean, one of the considerations is around green waste and organics, and that's part of what we will need to look at. I think we've indicated in there that we'll be looking to leverage some of our money against some money from Green Industries SA to finalise the feasibility. It is an interesting one because I think there'll be more motivation and more need for us to do it if the waste was going into our landfill, given that it's all been transported off. We've got two parties to contend with. So I guess we've got council who may have a desire to do something with green organics as a good corporate citizen, but then we've also got the company that's receiving that waste has to have a genuine desire to reduce the waste in the landfill as well. So they're the sorts of things we are working through, and that's where the shared services aspect can come into it in terms of, is there another solution for green organic waste materials and things like that.
So another question then is, on the basis that we're looking at green waste, and if there was a disinterest by Veolia, can we negotiate a sublease of that area for somebody else to operate from it? Or maybe consideration on those lines? Or that we actually have it as an environmental requirement of leases in the future? Yeah,
I think they're the questions that need to be answered through the feasibility. So yeah, I mean, I can give you an opinion, but I don't think that's a qualified opinion.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Matt. No further questions. Can I have a move for that, please? Councillor Storm, would you like to speak on it?
Just thanks for that extra information on the waste motions.
Yeah, thanks, JP.
Yep. And can I have a second, please? Councillor Davis, want to speak on it?
Thank you. Well done, thank you.
Any speakers for or against? All those in favour? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 14 is corporate and community reports. 14.1 Finance and Business Annual Business Plan Project Status Report. Over to you, David. Oh, sorry, Bonnie.
No, I'll take it, Brad.
Yep, okay.
So, councillors, this is the first report. We apologise, it's a little delayed. The idea is to bring it each quarter when we look at the budget reviews. But as you can see, and I know you're aware, there's quite a volume of projects that we are working through this financial year. We split down just to keep it as simple as possible in the new and upgrade, renewal and operational list, and again broken it down into those that are completed, we were in progress, and then the quarter that we plan to progress with the other projects. And as you can see, we're making our way through. We're trying to be as sort of organised and methodical as we can, given the number of projects that we have to work our way through. But yeah, I'm really open for any questions.
Any questions at all?
Right, thank you.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Davis, do you want to speak on it? No?
Thank you for this. It certainly gives us an insight into what's happening, progress. Staff, we hear about what staff challenges are maybe, and thank you, David, and your team, and JP and everybody for putting all this together.
Yep, great. Deputy Mayor Ritchie.
Second.
Yeah, you want to speak on it? Okay.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
No? Is there any speakers for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Thanks, David. Item 14.1.2 is Flinders Theatres, A. Perkin and S. Torkarski. We can send them a new lease. Over to you, David.
Thanks, Mayor Brad. It is pretty self-explanatory. Dom's here if you have any questions.
No questions on it? Okay, can I have a mover then, please? Councillor Broadfoot, would you like to speak on it?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Can I have a second, please? Councillor Jolly, would you like to speak on it?
No, I think it's an ongoing right.
Yep. Any speakers for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 14.2, People, Governance and Communications, there are none. Item 14.3 is Community Culture and Recreation. 14.3.1, SANFL Home and Away Match, Norwood Footy Club. A lot of work going on in the background here in both areas. I'll commend to you the work that has gone on from both parties. Over to you, Matt. No, David, you're going to...
Thanks, Matt Brad. Again, there has been a significant work that's been going on in the background. Finally, there's some agreement that's been reached for potential dates. But we think this is will have a great benefit and potentially going forward. So, as the report proposes, we'd like to make a contribution of $10,000. Fortunately, there'll be no impact to the operating budget on the back of the fact that particular orchestras will not be utilising their grant funding money. So again, our proposal is, we'd be allocating it against that budget line. Obviously, it's on the back of that we do need some confirmation from Port Lincoln Football regarding the match date.
Okay, questions?
I just asked a question, and I'm not sure what position this puts me in, this question, but anyway, I'm going to ask it. Was there any consideration of that soft festival? And what sort of accommodation and everything might be available over that period of time?
Through you, Mayor Brad. Yeah. So I guess this, from council's perspective, there's been no consideration around what this clashes with or what it doesn't clash with. And that's purely down to our role to date has been around liaising with Norwood Football Club, pushing for showing interest in actually holding a league match over here. In relation to that, we've had meetings with Norwood when they were here for the Lotlock Shield. We also have had various conversations with Norwood since then, including attendance at the EP round at Norwood Oval, and then a subsequent meeting where Mayor Brad and I were able to squeeze in a meeting with Norwood, the president of the Norwood Football Club, after the LGA conference a few weeks ago. This timing really comes down to what the league will permit. When I say the league, I mean the SANFL. And SANFL have granted permission for Norwood to hold a match in a regional area on that weekend. So negotiation or discussion around the timing of that weekend really is outside the scope of what we have control over. Given that this is something that we believe would be hugely beneficial to Port Lincoln and the Lower Air region this year, but also if we could secure an ongoing arrangement where we can bring a SANFL match, we may have some more flexibility moving forwards. I think from Norwood's perspective, they're looking to do three things. They're looking to do the regional match held on the Peninsula, ideally for us, it would be held in Port Lincoln. They're looking to do the EP celebration round, which will be held at Norwood Oval. And then they're also looking to do the Mortlock Shield tennis. So 3 key events throughout the football calendar, which will have a very strong linkage into the Peninsula. So I guess we are not that involved in the planning around the timing. That's really a discussion between the league, SANFL League, and Norwood. And I'm not sure that we're going to have a lot of flexibility within that.
Yeah, we'll just follow up. So are they aware that there's a festival, a 10-day festival on at that time? So has that even been raised?
No, we can certainly
because it
raise
might
that,
be just as a as it would be great to have everyone here and then they go to events, it's going to be about accommodation and second week of school holiday. So I think it's wonderful. It's just, yeah, just from a logistics point of view, and for them to know that that's the other major thing that's happening over that time period would probably be a useful conversation.
Yeah, I think they could, if we could, they could be complementary, I think.
Oh, yeah. Like,
What you're saying is correct.
Right, but yeah.
The planning
I
side.
was just wondering if they're aware.
No, probably not. No. Yeah. And one of the other things that we have had very, very preliminary discussions with them about is a projection for 3 years, is that we'd be looking at for 3 years, and if possible. And we're also been in quite extensive discussions with them regarding Operation Flinders and also the Duke of Edinburgh Awards, of which they want to be hosting.
Which council's already sponsored.
Yeah.
Everyone's 92, so yeah. So the current status of this is the conversations that we've had with Norwood, that obviously we're in a position where we can make a statement of intent to the Norwood Football Club about hosting the game here in Port Lincoln. Obviously we have to have a conversation with the Football League. We did have a conversation with the Football League around the country championships, which were open for tender a few months ago. And we decided with the league that we wouldn't submit for tender for that at this point, but we would resubmit in 2 years' time, potentially hold country championships, because that allows us to do a few things. It allows us to potentially secure a sample match here. It allows us to finish the sport and rec strategy, and it also allows us to have an investment strategy in both Avondale and Centenary Oval for the broader facilities. So it's all concurrent with our support for the association, but also for the sample. I guess this is also about acknowledging that the Norwood Football Club do service the whole EP. It is their whole catchment zone. So they will reach out to the other council areas and let them know they're looking to hold a match over on the EP, and give the other councils an opportunity to indicate whether they've got the ability to support that. I think this is about getting in and making a very firm commitment up front that we view, if there's going to be a sample match, it should be held in Port Lincoln.
Is there any other clarifying questions for Matt? Yes, Councillor Dodd.
Yeah, is there any potential for SANFL requesting support as well? Because obviously there's got to be an opposition side that needs to come to Port Lincoln to play. And SANFL will be either paying their way or that club to pay the same way to Port Lincoln. Has been a discussion along those lines?
Yep, so without going into commercial details, which I'm not likely to be able to disclose, that responsibility falls to Norwood. And part of the discussions that we'll be having with Norwood is around what fundraising they need to do in order to fund the full trip. So the $10,000 commitment from council is a small portion, and there's likely going to be a need to seek local sponsorship as well from other organisations, as well as Norwood's own financial commitment to actually bring this game across. So they're also dipping into their own pocket, so to speak, to actually fund this trip across. And part of that would be offsetting the costs of the opposition team.
Okay, no further clarifying questions? Councillor Storm.
Just in regards to the wording on the motion there where we say initial funding, is that indicating that we'll be looking to give more funding in the future? Having the word initial there?
I think that was actually meant as the motion, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you take the word initial out. I mean, it's
a funding contribution.
Provide a funding contribution of 10,000. Yep.
Stop it out.
Yep, just stop it out. It doesn't limit us either way.
Delete the dates.
In 2022, to be held on the Peninsula in 2022, subject to.
If other elected members are comfortable with that.
Take out the weekend.
Okay, no problems with that.
Can I just
Is it
ask
a clarifying question?
Well, it is a clarifying question. I suppose what I'm seeking is that I appreciate and understand organisations from far afield, whether it's a football club, whether it's arts, whatever, coming into small local communities when they have a very, very big audience in metropolitan Adelaide and they come and seek and source local sponsorship to facilitate a program within our local communities. And when it comes to sponsorship in particular, I suppose my question is how do the elected members feel about and what advice would council staff give to us when sponsorship is so thin on the ground these days? Is there an impact? I'm concerned about the impact and what we could do to share the love of it. I just find sometimes this is quite challenging.
So what's the question?
The question is what are the wider, there are going to be some benefits, but there's also going to be some wider impacts in this community. What do you people who've done all the meetings believe those to be the impact? One's been raised here tonight, that if it was held over Anzac, it would be complete. So my question is what impacts have you identified, if any?
Through you, Mayor Brad, I guess in terms of supporting events, I think there's probably a couple of aspects to that. I feel that councils do have a role in terms of sponsorship for events and wanting to bring things into the community that aren't already in the community. I think that's a given. I think you find that in regional and in metro areas, the councils sponsor events. It's also then about understanding the magnitude of the sponsorship required from within the community. And I think if we're talking in the context of this, we might be only talking one or two sponsors, corporate sponsors. And knowing the scale of sponsorship, we're probably only talking similar amounts, smaller amounts than what we're contributing. The relationships that these organisations have, they're not relying on council to go and do the scaling for them. They have relationships with existing companies and corporations and businesses within the district. And I feel that if the organisations felt it was going to be a strain, they wouldn't be pushing for it or asking for it. So I guess just as we've expressed our desire to bring Norwood Football Club to Port Lincoln, there will be other people willing to put their money on the line to make that happen as well. And I don't think it's going to unnecessarily stress particular businesses in doing that.
There's also the clinics that are being run as well, or proposed to be run. So they're looking at clinics on the peninsula and in the cities. So, okay.
So if I can, it's partly a follow-up question on that, but do you see there's an opportunity because we don't have Tickle Almost Rent, that this is a significant sporting event that actually will that will be potentially appealing to sponsors as well. Just take Bay's point, because there hasn't been a significant sporting event for, well, apart from the locally generated ones. So do you see that as a bit of an opportunity and potentially an opportunity for collaboration around projects as well locally?
Yeah, look, I think, again, this is a relatively new area for council to be dabbling into in terms of, in the last 6 months, we've provided sponsorship to tennis, Association to bring the Tennis All-Stars out. We've provided sponsorship to the Basketball Association to bring the Adelaide Lightning out, which is a date yet to be reconfirmed. And here we're looking at a third opportunity to bring out the Norwood Football Club. So I think from a policy perspective, council doesn't have a policy on this. I think this is sort of that aspect that we incorporate into the sport and rec strategy on how we engage and bring these sorts of events across. So I guess we're flying a little bit blind in the sense we don't have that underarching strategy or policy statement for council and how we support these events. It's also one where I guess the manager of economic tourism growth role also has a role to play in investment attraction. So that role, although we've got the vacancy in that role at the moment, as that builds up, that person and that manager will have an understanding of people within the organisation, within the local region, who are able to support and help out, bring similar sort of events over. And that could also be outer region sponsorship from companies in Adelaide or from further afield, but also in region sponsorship. So I think it's an area we need to be cognizant that we're not just going to be spending council and community money on these things, but we do need to start putting a little bit of informal structure around how we leverage those who can afford to support and bring that money into the community.
I think it will put the city on the map. You know, this would be just one aspect as it's sold, and the auto sprint and the rest of it. It's that type of thing, the approach that we're having here with the other two sports, is that we're starting to put the city on the map for the people living in Adelaide.
And I think for the estimates, the very conservative estimates, I think the Norwood Football Club are working on is around 2,000 people through the gate if they were to hold a match here at Port Lincoln. So,
okay, Councillor Dodd.
Just one more clarifying question. Do we need to add a third dot point in relation to meeting COVID protocols to protect their investment? If you're going to hand 10 grand to Norwood prior to the event, and it gets cancelled.
So, can we cover that by removing the word confirmation the match will be held in Port Lincoln to that the match be held in Port Lincoln? Because if the match doesn't get held, we don't hand over.
But the match is held in Port Lincoln, not will be.
Does that address that? Yeah.
Everyone okay with that?
Sort of, it comes through the back door a bit, but it probably does.
Okay, can I have a move and then please,
I've got another question.
Another question?
Yeah, I'm just like looking at the letter. So their major sponsors are Appel, Coopers, IWS, Paradise Masna, Barossa Boy, Findex, Shibby, Ello, People's First Credit Union. So they're their major sponsors on their letterhead. And I'm just wondering how we got to the amount of 10,000 because the letter doesn't ask for 10,000, and it also talks about, you know, we look, it'll be our intention to keep several of our players and staff and players over and utilise the opportunity to visit a variety of towns and clubs across the region. So jump it potentially. So I'm just wondering like whether they submitted a budget and what the, you know, what have they asked for an amount and what they envisage spending that on, or is it arbitrary if we just said, you know, that's what we reckon, or what's your?
Yeah, so they haven't requested amount. I know figures. I haven't seen the budget yet, but I have discussed verbally the budget, so I've got an indication of the funds they're looking to raise. I think it's also about an early intervention. So in terms of getting an offer effectively on the table in front of the Norwood Football Club before this goes out to the broader region. So in a sense, it is an arbitrary amount, but I think it's also about setting the boundary on where we feel our commitment is, rather than then opening the door to a conversation for a larger amount for the sponsorship of the event.
Okay, any other clarifying questions?
But again, it's totally the priority of the council. So if council wants to do nothing, we can do nothing. If council wants to indicate support for having an Port Lincoln with an amount to be discussed through a formal negotiation, then we can do that, or we can have this indicative commitment of cash to try and secure the event here in Port Lincoln.
That would just free you up to negotiate anyway.
What was that? Sorry.
So that, sorry.
It makes a pretty firm commitment up front.
Yeah,
and I guess it also coincides with the amount of funding that was made available to take all those things.
Okay, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Dodd. Want to speak on it?
Well, I think, yeah, it's a fair distribution of funds. We support hockey events and we support basketball events, and I don't see this being vastly different.
Okay, thanks. Can I have a second, please? Councillor Lim, would you like to speak on it? Speakers for or against? Councillor Broadwood.
Yeah, I'd like to get some more information, so I'd like to speak against the motion if we haven't got an option to amend the motion and look at getting some more information. What is the budget? And I totally understand securing the event and, you know, those types of things. But I think, yeah, an exchange of more information with a clear budget so we can see like what is it, because this is, and I think it is, you know, Matt's made some good points about our policy and how that starts to drive what we're doing, rather than every time somebody comes we throw 5 or 10 grand at it. And they're all good things. I just think I'd like some more information. Very unusual for me to vote against anything, but that's my position in this situation.
Thanks very much. Any speakers for and against? Councillor Dodd, do you want right reply? No. Councillor Staunton?
Oh, I'm happy to support the motion. I think the funding can be reallocated from the original Teal auto sprint, so we're not getting worse off. So long as it's held here in Port Lincoln, and we've got the support from the Port Lincoln Football League. I just wonder if we need the for the proposed match date wording on that motion, or whether that should be kept. Because we took the date out of the motion.
For the proposed match and just take the word date out.
I'm happy.
You happy with that?
Actually, we just remove that, subject to the match, and change is the being. Subject to the match being held.
Do you agree to those amendments?
Yep.
Peter, do you agree to those amendments? Right to reply, Jim?
Yeah, that won't matter.
Okay, all those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? Motion is carried. Item 15, Environment and Infrastructure Reports, Civil Assets and Operations. The 2022 Tuneroma Road closure request. Over to you, JP.
Thanks, Mayor Brad. So this is just a standard road closure request for the event. At this particular time dates indicated in the report. Happy to take any questions?
Questions of JP? No questions. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Broadfoot, would you like to speak on it?
Okay.
I have a second. Councillor Jolly, would you like to speak on it?
No, please stand.
Yep. Okay. Speakers for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay. Open spaces 15.2, revocation and use of council marquee policy. Over to you, JP, again.
Thanks, Mayor Brad. So this one, I think after reviewing it and considering it, really didn't make a lot of sense having a policy for something that was really there because there was a lack of a process and a lot of the information is already captured in the process. So having a policy for the sake of the policy just didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I recommend the policy being removed.
Any clarifying questions for JP? No, have a mover, please. Councillor Dodd, would you like to speak on it? Another second, please. Councillor Staunton, would you like to speak on it?
No, that's right.
Speakers for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Item 15.3 is Development Services, Liquor and Entertainment Venue Licences Policy. JP, over to you again.
Thanks, my Brad. So this one is a little bit more in depth. There's been a fair few changes that came into effect in 2018 and 19. But as per the report, some of the main differences to just be aware of is that council's permission, I guess, is no longer necessarily always required. However, there are certain situations where it will come to council for consideration. The policy has two main considerations for council, and it's around when it comes to planning approvals, as well as council-owned and controlled buildings and land. Fundamentally, there was the amendments to the policy was made to reflect those changes, and other than that, not sure what more to add, but happy to take any questions.
Any questions of that one? No, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Davis, would you like to speak on it?
I'm very pleased to see that amended and changed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a second, please? Councillor Broadfoot, would you like to speak on it?
No, thanks for the word. Speakers
for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Item 15.3.2 is the extension of an easement at 6 Kooyonga Avenue, Port Lincoln. JP again.
Thanks, Mayor Brad. So just in relation to this one, from time to time, as we establish easements to make sure the council can get access to their infrastructure and make sure we can do our day-to-day work, we sometimes have to, as part of the development application process, determine where we're going to need certain easements and so forth. But as plans change and as things develop, you sometimes people like this case realize, well, we actually don't need one because there's been alternative arrangements and plans made. With this particular one, we were able to get the water to drain straight into the road. So I've had the previous manager for environmental, for my department, as well as the new manager for civil assets and operations, Troy, has reviewed this and is quite comfortable with the new proposal. Will make it so that we don't actually need this when moving forward. So the request there is to actually remove the easement off the land.
Questions? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Staunton, would you like to speak on it?
It's very straightforward, thanks, Ruben.
Councillor Jolly, your second?
Yeah.
Speak on it?
Just that we rely on staff, obviously, that guide us in this particular area.
That's fine. Questions? Sorry, speakers for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Thanks. Item 15.4 is Environment and Community Safety. There is none. Item 16, Confidential Council Committee Reports and Minutes. So this is a recommendation to go. I'll take that back. 16.1 is the confirmation of the minutes of the Chief Executive Officer Review Committee meeting held on the 6th of December. So is there any clarifying questions on that? Just to remind you that Councillor Broadfoot, Deputy Mayor Ritchie, myself, Councillor Davis and Councillor Rousell are the CEO Review Committee. Okay, can I have a mover for the recommendation then please? Councillor Broadfoot, do you want to speak on it?
I did them, so I'm going to move my minutes.
Right. Okay. Deputy Mayor Jack, you want to second it? All those in favour? Motion carried. So 16.2 is the performance review final report. The recommendation is to go into confidence there. Can I have a mover for that, please?
Just before you do, Mayor Brad, I'll just note that I'm going to stop the recording now. And what we'll do is we'll just need a minute or two just to set up that one so that you can then consult. So while you're moving and seconding, it just takes a few minutes to actually exit.
Yep, okay, concurrent activity. So can I have a mover for the recommendation to go into confidence, please? Councillor Storr.